Well, welcome to Yada Yahweh Radio. I am trying a new headset. I hope that the audio works. It looks like we have Kirk here. Hello, Kirk.
Good evening, and yes, it's working just fine.
Good. I apologize for being a little tardy. It's a mundane reason, but we have a gentleman that is working on the two Sub-Zeros that we have on the boat. Both went on the frets. And it's been a 2-week ordeal getting the Sub-Zero repairman here with the parts. And I was out taking care of my dog, Asher, and noticed that he was getting a parking ticket in the marina parking lot where I'm sitting. And so I talked the attendant out of it, ran back, got a parking pass for him to avoid him getting a ticket. And by the time that I came back, he had my crew quarters flooded, trying to de-ice the freezer. And so rather than sink the boat, I thought maybe I ought to get him some provisions to absorb the water. And then I gave him a heat gun to be more efficient. And yet, with two heat guns working simultaneously, it tripped the circuit breakers. And, well, one thing led to another. And I apologize. That was not my – I had the –
We got the picture.
I had to show
That's pretty cool. That's a movie there.
Early. But, you know, sinking the boat with the love of my life and my four-legged companion on it and a workman besides is considered poor form.
Very bad performance.
I will tell you that it is an extraordinary day here today. We have a tropical storm that is menacing the northern Bahamas that decided that it would blow here much harder than the impact we got from Dorian. So we're getting 30 to 40 mile an hour winds, gusts above that have turned the intercoastal where I am now into quite the sea. And the boat, well, I went out a little earlier this evening and doubled up on lines. I think we now have 16 lines, inch-and-a-half lines. Doesn't sound much when you say inch-and-a-half line, but you think of an inch-and-a-half diameter braided line. That is a serious piece of rope. It's rope until you bring it aboard a boat, of course. And then the tension on these lines, as I now have 6 bow lines, 6 stern lines, and 6 spring lines on this boat. The tension on those lines is just amazing with the constant wind out of the north by northeast. So it has been an eventful day. We are looking forward not only to doing the show, but also to a very relaxing Shabbat. I've told everybody that was going that didn't finish today that I am sorry. We are shut down for Shabbat. But we're going to enjoy it. But I'm not off to a very good start, am I? So 3 to bear.
Well, that's you can't have that. So, do you have to drop an anchor too to do that? Is that helpful?
No, I'm right now. For those who might be interested, I'm at the what's called the face dock of the Las Olas Marina, which means that I'm out in the intercoastal. In Fort Lauderdale, just north of the Las Olas Bridge, and we are between captains. We had a captain that worked with us for about 3 weeks, and then the hurricane occurred that we talked about last week that went and just ravaged what we had listed as home port. We were headed, in fact, we were supposed to be there the night of the hurricane. And so he left to take care of family and friends in Abaco and to do rescue work. And so we've been interviewing captains. We've got a series of 3 that over the course of the next few months that will take care of us in succession. But for the most part of the last year, I have been captain and crew. There's really been no one other than me managing the boat and all of the work that's been done on it. And it's been good because I've learned a lot, and it's been kind of a fun project. And I've for the last week now, the boat has been home, and I'm in my new office in the pilot house at the top deck of the boat. It's an enclosed area in the forward section of the flybridge. that I managed to enclose with tempered glass. And here in South Florida, it's nice because it's air conditioned in this Flybridge pilot house. And I've got a desk here with a wraparound screen and my logos, and no, you were going to town. This is exactly what I'd hoped would prevail, that I would be able to use this as my place to translate and write, and it's turned out to be just a marvelous, beautiful office. Jerry McLaughlin, our good friend, the publicist whose business really is doing marvelous for him, has booked me on a number of shows recently. I think it's John Rint's show is the Reese show is the one that I've done here most recently. We actually did one on the Covenant and one before that on the Dead Sea Scrolls and comparing them to the deplorable state of the Christian New Testament, and did a lot of work just to expose and condemn the religion of Christianity, as well as on the previous show, Islam. And during the second one of those shows, I mentioned the first short book that I've ever written. It was the project of the gentleman who has coordinated the printing of these books on Amazon, and he was going to publish an introductory book because was so much interest in just having a short book that would introduce people to what we have learned. And I have previously been opposed to that because, other than the 10 statements that he etched in stone, Yahweh does not have a summary of his message to humankind. And he doesn't for a lot of reasons. The worst thing that could possibly happen is for people to just act upon the 5 conditions of the covenant, start attending the mikveh, have no idea what they mean, not give up their religion and politics, and expect to be included in the covenant family, which would make eternity miserable for everyone, including God and probably them. So I've avoided doing it. But if the short book is going to be on the 10 statements, which is Yahweh's one and only summary, then that's okay, I guess. Because if Yah did it, there's no reason that I can't translate and comment on what he did. So I decided if we're going to do that, I might as well rewrite it and retranslate Shemot 20, and then include for the first time the volume 5, which is where they're not only repeated but expounded upon and amplified, and then get it do as complete a job as I can, and write as many insights, include as many insights as possible into this book. And it began with a very interesting, I think, slightly more philosophical approach than any of the books thus far. And this book is only around 100 pages, so it is genuinely a short book. And it's just on the 10 statements. It's a rewritten chapter of an introduction to God on volume 5. And it begins with this analysis, this comparison between what is moral and what is legal. It's a comparison between a legalistic approach and an ethical approach. And I don't think this is probably the time to get into it on this show, but I thought it was a really important and interesting philosophical discussion as to what is the difference between a legal system and an ethical system. Yeah. The 10 statements are an ethical system. They're based upon free will. Our decisions on whether or not to engage and act based upon the instructions is wholly our own. The motivations are because it's just the right thing to do. Whereas with a legal system, We have no choice. We don't create it. We have no influence over it. There's an immediate penalty or consequence if we violate it, and it's imposed. And so I went through and explained why, under conditions of free will, Yahweh cannot have a legal system. The Torah cannot be a set of laws. These cannot be commandments. And yet he can have an ethical system that provides guidance as to what is the best way to interact with him and with our fellow man, and also engage in the covenant, since much of it is covered. So it is an interesting read. And the reason I mention it is that evidently prior to the show, the book was better than average on Amazon, but it was in the many hundreds of thousands in the ranking. So maybe in the top 40%. Mm-hmm. And then after doing the show, the book went to the point where it was in the top 10,000 or so, which is the top 1 or 2% of the books for sale at Amazon. And so there is still an enormous appeal of talk radio. Mm-hmm. And so what Jerry has arranged, and we're going to see how it works. I went and got this new cellular headset to see how it works for broadcast quality. And I have a new audiovisual technician arriving on Tuesday to try to get us the highest quality fidelity of sound and internet connection, not only here in South Florida, but also throughout the Bahamas, such that we're going to do the program initially on the Jeff Rentz radio network, a simulcast there, and then also on the American, I think it's the American radio network. Jerry's got the email to me, and I've forgotten the exact designation of it, but be double syndicated in addition to the show on Blog Talk Radio. So, perhaps we will reach more people and encourage them to read. And make no mistake, this show I only do this show for two reasons. And Kirk, you may do it, have your own set of reasons for doing it, but I only do it for two reasons. One is that I can't stop doing it because between the archives and the live broadcast, there are many family members, covenant members that we've come to know and love that look forward to this program. It's a very special way to start their Shabbat. And they listen with their spouses, they listen with their children, and it's an important time in the covenant family's life for us to just share insights on the Torah. Now, that's reason enough. But I also do it because there is a number of folks that do a marvelous job of presenting the audio throughout different places of the Internet. And it's those programs that very often are effective in encouraging people to read the books and introducing the subject to them, such that they begin to read Yada Yahweh, an introduction to God, observations for our time, questioning Paul, and the like. And so the second reason is that the target audience remains Yehudim. We've just celebrated Yom Kippurim. Mm-hmm. But Yom Kippurim isn't about those of us who are Goyim. The only role that we have as Goyim in Yom Kippurim is the Teruah aspect of it, which is to provide a voice. Someone who is passionate about Yahweh's name, his people, his place, his plan, his message, his covenant. And to share that boldly, accurately, in such a way that Yehudim and Yisrael listen, come out of Babylon and return to Yah. Because reconciliations isn't about reconciling Yah's relationship with Goyim. It isn't about us Goyim having a big old party and saying, boy, it's swell to be part of the covenant. Yom Kippurim is about Yahweh reconciling his relationship with Yisrael and Yehudah. Period. I don't know if you would agree with me. If you don't, that's fine. You know, we can disagree and still be part of this marvelous covenant family. But I was once very disturbed by Kippurim. And I got Pesach was eternal life, and I got that matzah was perfection, the removal of the fungus of religion and politics from our soul. Now, quite frankly, I was troubled that by the order of them. I would much prefer it had to have been perfected before made immortal. And then I realized that Pesach and Matzah are one integrated celebration, and that those who are not covenant, those who are not circumcised, those who have not accepted the 5 conditions of the covenant are explicitly told, don't participate in Pesach. And so that removed the fact that, all right, the order is a little different than I would have liked. The order is as it needs to be for Yahweh to have fulfilled it the way he did. You know, you have to be the Pesach lamb before your soul can go into Sheol. And so it really is essential that it is the order that Yahweh has it. And then Bikurim is part of the whole thing. You are become immortal, you are perfected, then you're adopted into Yahweh's family. Now, just one second. Okay, hang on one second. The breaker is in that panel. You'll see refrigerator freezer in the crew quarters. It's in the 110 panel. The 110 panel. That's the second one from the bottom. All right, I'm having my loving mate is trying to work on behalf of the Sub-Zero repairman to turn off the breaker for the appliances he's working on. If she is successful in getting it done, great. If she is not, I will sneak down and get it done. Okay. So that all made sense to me. Once you understand that no one is explicitly forbidden to participate in Pesach without also being part of the covenant, then Pesach before Matzah makes sense for Yahweh's fulfillment, and it makes sense for us. And then, of course, Bikurim is that immortal and perfected were adopted into Yah's family.
Shabbat.
And I love the idea that with Shabbat, 7 sevens later, we're enriched and empowered and enlightened. Yeah. You wouldn't want to be enriched, empowered, and enlightened when you're an infant, when you're a newborn. You need to get your legs underneath you and be part of this life before you're enriched and empowered and enlightened. You need to grow a little bit. And then Towrah is the perfect example of what we ought to do next. We ought to be passionate about sharing what we know that God disdains and what he embraces and what he encourages. But then why in the world would reconciliations follow all of that? You would think you would need to be reconciled before you'd have eternal life. You need to be reconciled before you'd be perfected. Once you're perfected, what's the purpose of being reconciled, right?
Well,
how do you reconcile a relationship that's already perfect?
You can't. That's not the audience.
You can't.
Yeah.
So I was really uncomfortable with the order of things. And then I guess I'm a slow learner. It dawned on me that Pesach, Matzah, Bikurim, Shabbat, Towrah are for all of us that want to be part of God's family. It doesn't make any difference. In fact, we're told throughout. It doesn't make any difference if we're Yisrael, Yehudah, or those who want to be adopted into God's family, who are going.
Yeah.
But we all play a role then in helping Yah fulfill the mission that is the ultimate promise that he has made, which is to reconcile his relationship with Yisrael and Yehudah. It was essential to him. He made the promise to Abraham over and over again. He made the promise to Yishak, to Yaakov. He makes the promise over and over again that he is going to reconcile his relationship. And that reconciliation takes place just prior, 5 days prior, to the earth being restored to the conditions found in the Garden of Eden. And so it's not the one that is different from the others. It is simply what all of this leads to is ultimately to the reconciliation of Yahweh's relationship.
Hello? Hello?
That was me, Kirk.
Oh.
All right. Am I back with you?
Yeah, you're back on now. You just came on.
Okay. What happened there is this is a Bluetooth headset, and it only is over one ear, which is not how I'm used to wearing headsets for radio. It's usually over two ears, and there are push buttons on the right ear. So as I tried to adjust it, I hit one of the buttons, and I think it disconnected, or turned off the headset. So, need to learn how to handle these things. Curve. So anyway, what I was trying to say is that I think Kippurim, obviously it's in the right place, but I finally come to understand that Kippurim has nothing to do with us Goyim. It is all about Yisrael and Yehudah, and reconciling the relationship with Yahweh, and that we celebrate it as appreciating God's desire, his plan, his commitment to reconcile his relationship with children. It is ultimately the prodigal son celebration.
Mm-hmm.
Is the purpose of Yom
this
Kippur.
week this week I was talking to one of my students who happens to be Yehudim, and I gave her Intro to God one time, and she gave it back, and it was sad. But regardless, I asked her, she's gotten older and she has some illness in the family, as like a lot of us, and I asked her, what would you like to do? And I thought she would say, well, I'm going to move with my daughter back east, or I'm going to move back to some other relatives. And she said, no, my real desire is to move back to Israel. If she's not involved with this now, my hope would be, because it's a really nice family, my hope would be that if they do go back to Israel, that they will have an opportunity to live through that so that they can celebrate Kippurim and Sukkah with us all at that date. I mean, that's so. It from that standpoint, it is kind of one more opportunity to Yahweh's given them, and for that matter, any of us who chose not to now. So.
Well, are we still together?
Yes, we're still here.
Okay, yeah, we're having. Was unable to find the circuit breaker, I think. Oh, they got it off. Okay, crew galley freezer, and there should be a crew galley wine cooler. We can turn that off. And that should be all of them, unless there's a crew galley refrigerator. Okay, I think so. The crew galley freezer ought to have done it. Is he safe down there? All right. There we go. All right, so we're returning. Boy, I'll tell you what. Sometimes there
adventure,
are.
Huh?
Yeah. Challenges in life. And the fun part about that one is that this new Bluetooth headset is supposed to be work for several hundred feet. I was 20 feet away and it broke up. I had to come back up, get my phone, carry it down, and then trying to get down quickly, banged my head.
Ooh.
All right. The last thought I wanted to share, because we will, for those who celebrated the earlier version of these events, we will be celebrating now Sukkah. And Sukkah happens to be my favorite of the seven, and it's my favorite because of what it represents, and ultimately what was happening is we're returning to the conditions found at Eden. And for 1,000 years, we're going to live with God in a place devoid of religion and politics, devoid of conspiracy, devoid of myth, devoid of man abusing his fellow man. And the earth itself is going to look like a pristine garden. Everything is going to be beautiful. We're going to see Yahweh in his more natural form as light, Dode. David is going to be king. Yisrael will be reestablished. The relationship reconciled. And those of us who are not Yehudim at that point, we're going to have the opportunity to explore the universe, this existing universe. We have a chance to do that for 1,000 years before Yahweh destroys it, so we're going to be witnesses to the birth of a new one. And those who are Yisrael and Yehudah will have jobs to do in Yisrael. That's not a booby prize. It's going to be a wonderful, wonderful, exciting opportunity. No matter which side of the ethnicity that you find yourself. Well, as we return to Chapter 2 of Volume 3, I would say that there isn't a single prophecy in which Yahweh cites Yosha's name. Isn't that amazing?
Yes.
You know, Christians have been led to believe that the focus of everything in the so-called Old Testament is to point to Jebus. There isn't a single prophecy, not even by the correct name, Yosha. Not one. Now, some might say that in that when Yahweh is speaking of Yosha, the high priest, that is a prophecy predicting Yahweh or Yosha. But it's not only spelled differently, the prophecy is condescending of the high priest and those around it.
Yes.
So that clearly isn't it. So the fact of the matter is, there isn't a single one that lists him by name. And I would say that somewhere in the range of 80% of those that Christians claim predicts Jesus, Yosha, actually apply to Dode and don't apply to Yosha at all. In fact, if you read a Christian apologist site, one of the things you find is that even if Dode's name is specifically mentioned, they say, oh, he's just a stand-in for Yosha. So you've got a real issue if you think that Yosha is the single most important person who ever lived. If God doesn't have a single prophecy regarding, heck, Yahweh has prophecies regarding Shaul where he's named.
Both names.
Right? Right.
Both names, lowly and little, and Sheol.
Oh,
Shaul.
all over the place. Yeah, Shaul. Yes. So there's not a single prophecy where Yahweh cites Yosha's name, identifying him as the one who fulfills it. And yet there are hundreds of prophecies in which Dode is expressly named, all of which will be fulfilled upon Yahweh's return. I suspect that this is why. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, is there any place where Yahusha said that I need you to focus on me?
No, he said
focus on the Word, focus on the Torah.
Yeah, the Torah.
He never said focus on me, so why are we worrying about focusing on him? He said, that's where this is the path. Don't change the jot and the tittle. I mean, give me a break. It's not a demeaning thing. He told you what to look at.
Let's go one step further.
Okay.
What record do we have of what Yosha said in the language that he spoke it?
Not one word.
No. Matter of fact, there's a person that just listened to that John Rin's show, and he said that he has a website that is devoted to presenting an English translation of the Gospel of Matthew in Hebrew. I wrote him back and said, well, I'm convinced that not a gospel, but the eyewitness account of Matanya was originally written in Hebrew. The problem is, we don't have a single fragment of anything that Matanya wrote in Hebrew or that anyone wrote in Hebrew about him. There is not a single Hebrew record that mentions Yosha or anything that he said. Not one. And so
I thought he always quoted the Torah to begin with.
Of course. To pretend that you have an English translation of Matanya in Hebrew is just craziness.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't exist.
Another lie.
There is no such. Yeah, it's just another lie. And a person wrote me back and said, well, the Syrian church claims to have a history of it. And, if you look at the history of their claims, they would claim to have translations of it. Oh, yeah, right. That's the best you got? As a claim of an institution that is religious and direct opposition to Yahweh, and you're going to say that their claims, wholly unsubstantiated, that somewhere they had but have lost a Hebrew rendition, and it's for damn sure they didn't translate it into English, because English didn't even exist until around the 14th, 15th, 16th centuries.
Mm-hmm.
So who are we kidding here?
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is we don't have a single word that Yosha spoke in the language he spoke. And there's something that one day I would love to explore. I don't know what the answer here is, but it is indeed perplexing. There's 69 pre-Constantine manuscripts of the Christian New Testament. Do you know where all 69 were found?
In Egypt, of course.
Yeah, outside of Alexandria, Egypt. Mm-hmm. Do you know where all 69 were written?
I would imagine they were written in Alexandria, weren't they?
Yeah.
Or maybe.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah, Scribatorium in Alexandria, Egypt.
Sure.
What is there? Is there any evidence of any kind, apart from Dode's prophecies, of a fellow named Yosha living in the 1st century CE, apart from these 2 eyewitness and 2 hearsay accounts?
No, not really.
Mattaniah, Yahukanan, Mark, and Luke. Is there anything? So 100%.
And I can't find anything that covers that, no.
So apart from those 4 books, all of which, the earliest copies, 69 that have been found, 69 of 69, were written in Greek and written in Alexandria, Egypt. And apart from them, nothing. Not a word for 300 years. And that's all there is, because there is no secular mention. I know some people want to say Josephus wanted to wrote something about him, and it's barely a single line, and doesn't ascribe any credit to him at all. Not a word.
Correct.
There is no basis at all for anyone to focus on Yosha, much less Jesus, and to be a Christian apart from those 4 eyewitness books, because everything that Paul wrote was the antithesis of what he is attributed as saying, and is anti the very God he claims inspired him. So there's nothing. Mm-hmm. And it was all written in Alexandria, Egypt, and found outside of Alexandria, Egypt. Tell me that's not a problem.
That's a problem. That's like somebody coming from Syria and claiming they're on God's side. Or Damascus.
Yes.
Same principle.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that's like the constitution for the state of Israel being written in Damascus by people who never met a Jew. I mean, how many eyewitnesses of Yosha you think were in Alexandria, Egypt, when those codexes were written?
Yeah, I don't think
Zero.
you find any. Yeah.
No, 0.
Yes.
Yeah. So. And then you add to that the fact that the text has been so miserably maintained, so often changed, that there really is no basis. If you want to be intellectually honest, you're informed, you've done your homework, you know the disparities and the discrepancies and the contradictions between the 69 pre-Constantine manuscripts and the basis of the English translations, and you know that all 69 were written in and were found just outside of Alexandria, Egypt. As the astronaut said, Houston, we have a problem.
A big problem.
So here is Yosha, never mentioned by name, and yet hundreds of prophecies in which Dode is expressly named, almost all of which will be fulfilled upon Yahweh's return. I suspect this is why Christians feel obliged to replace Dode's name with Jesus so that they can errantly claim the things of Yisrael for themselves. And you read one of them, it's just pathetic. Well, yes, it mentions David, but David is a stand-in for, we know that Yosha is the real shepherd. Oh, yeah? How many sheep did he tend? I must have missed that part. Well, he's the Messiah, not Dode. Oh, yeah? Then how come it says that Dode is the Masiach and never once says that Yosha is the Masiach? Why would Christians trust a God who can't keep his name straight? Who'd be willing to give to another what he promised to his son and to his people? If God made these promises to Israel, and you think now he's going to renege on those promises and give them to you as a church, why would you trust such a deity?
Even Xerxes didn't buy that. You know the story of Xerxes when they were fighting the Greeks, and the guy comes to him and betrays the Greeks, the Spartans, and he says, and then he comes at the end of it when they finally defeat them, the 300. He says, I'm ready for my reward. He says, here it is, and he cuts off his head. He says, why would I trust you if you betray your own people? That's pervasive throughout all cultures. You don't trust somebody who lies to you, that betrays your own people.
Right.
The Judas character is
for example,
always...
Josephus. Why would anyone in their right mind trust Josephus? He was a general for Yisrael, and to save his own neck, he betrayed Yisrael and worked for the destruction of Israel on behalf of Rome. Are you going to trust him? I'm not. Christians have had to cobble together pagan lore to create a God which fits their sensibilities and expectations, one they believe will do as they desire because they have projected their desires upon him. By the way, you know what the principal god was of Tarsus, where Paul came from? The most actively worshipped deity in Tarsus?
It's not Dionysus.
Depends if you were Roman or Greek. So different names.
Dionysus?
You are the winner. Gold star for that man.
Get the gold star. Thank you so much.
Yep, and guess what? If you read Paul's letters, the god that Paul depicts is a spitting image of Dionysus. The beloved Son of God, anointed King and Messiah, even Saviors, Christians seek, does not have to be mass-produced. He's real, eminently and intimately knowable, even verifiable. No faith is required to become acquainted with him or to benefit from what he has shared. Best of all, because Dode was flawed like the rest of us, and then perfected by God, his songs explain how we, as flawed individuals, can achieve the same result. Let's just pretend for a moment that we actually know what Yosha said and did apart from what we can glean from the Torah, prophets, and Psalms. How would that help us? You're a pretty good guy, Kirk. Are you going to follow Yosha's example?
No, he's already told me to go to look at the Torah. And we have the Torah.
How would you be capable of following his example?
Absolutely not. I'm not a Zoroa. I can't do what he did. Anyone else? Yeah, no. Only he can do what he did.
Are you going to try to bring sight to a blind person?
Try you
Cause
won't,
the lame to walk?
Ain't gonna happen.
Make the lame walk?
Not that dumb.
Are you? No. How are you at raising the dead?
It can't happen.
I tell you what, Kirk. You know, this Passover, rather than celebrating the Passover by barbecuing some lamb, why don't you serve as the Passover lamb and follow Yosha's example?
I'll pass.
I think I will too. how would you be trying to, you want to step up there in front of everybody and deliver a Sermon on the Mount?
No.
How about the prophecy of an Olivet Discourse?
No,
you ready for any of that?
Yeah, no.
No.
Not going to happen.
But Dode, for all of his wonderful insights and intellect and articulate nature and passion, leadership qualities, Dode, like the rest of us. There are some places where you and I can do a lot better than Dode. Other places where we're not fit to carry his sandals, but there are a lot of places where he swung from
we can say, one way to the other. Yes.
Yeah, we can learn from Dode, both based upon the best of what he had to say and the best of what he did, and by not emulating the worst of what he had to say and what he did.
Maybe that's why. Maybe that's why the two deletes are on each end of his name. Because I mentioned this to you once before, but I'm just based on what you were saying now. It doesn't matter how far the pendulum swings. Whatever direction you're in, you can still get to enlightenment. You can still get there through the Pesach door from either way. You
can come
find Dode,
to God through Dode. You can you come to the covenant from Dode. You can look at Dode based upon the story of Eden with Adam and Noach and Abraham and Jacob and Shamuel and how and Moshe and how all of those lead up to Dode, and then you can look upon Yahweh returning with Dode and look back on time, and look at his Mizmor as insights into the nature of God and the nature of time. But here's another interesting thing. There was a doorway into God's home in Eden, a doorway into God's home that was part of Noah's Ark. There was a doorway into God's home as the children of Israel left Egypt, and I've skipped one. There was a doorway to God's home in the presentation of the covenant with Abraham. All doorways into God's home. And then there is a giant doorway into God's home that is open on reconciliations, and that leads directly to Sukkah. Dode existed in year 3000 Yah, halfway through the human experience. 3,000 years transpired before Dode. 3,000 years have followed. That tent peg is placed right in the middle of time, with the doorway to God on either side. DWD.
Amazing, isn't it?
As for the other one, you can throw your dead God on a stick away. It's offensive. It's pagan. It's reprehensible. Trash your damn crosses. Bury, destroy, shatter. Throw into oblivion your crucifixes, your tortured and dead God on a stick. It's so offensive to God, so utterly wrong. Throw away the revolting image, your church, your Bible, and your religion. All of it. Throw away Jesus of Nazareth. There was no Nazareth at the time of Yosha. He was Yosha, the Nazar, the branch. Throw away Christ and Christian. He is not drugged, and you ought not be either. Easter and Christmas, they're purely pagan, as with Sundays and steeples, prayers and worship. Stop it. The Lord and Mary, Paul and Timothy, financial donations and bowing down, the Trinity and faith, a dying and resurrected God, a New Testament, and a gospel of grace. It's all rotten to the core. It's all Babel. But so is Judaism and Islam, Mormonism and Hinduism, Buddhism and secular humanism, capitalism, fascism, socialism, communism, and multiculturalism, as well as every conspiratorial agenda. New Age spiritualism and yoga, Kabbalah, all of it. If you count yourself among their devotees, and if taking out the trash is too much to ask at this point, then I'd like you to leave. Your religion and your politics are stinking up the place. Please, just go away. That said, over the past 19 years, I have never sought and will never seek the company of those who are passionate about their conspiracies or defined by their faith in their religion or politics. Personally, I think such individuals are stupid and are often repulsive. By the way, I'm not alone. God holds the same view of you on both accounts. This is true with God, and he has therefore avoided the political. He has despised the religious. He has mocked the conspiratorial for 6,000 years. There is a reason that Yosha consistently referred to himself as the Son of Man. It was true. His forefather was Dod, the anointed Messiah, the King of Israel, the beloved Son of God, the Good Shepherd, the hand of God, and the valiant man who fought to protect his people. Yosha was a branch off of the branch, a Netzir from the Shemach. For those who will seek a different path to understanding because they perceive that I have somehow devalued Jesus Christ or overhyped David, may I suggest that both of these things are impossible. As the diminished manifestation of Yahweh, the more we see and focus upon Yahweh in comparison to Yosha, the better. Yahweh did as he said he would do with Yosha. He fulfilled his promise to provide the Passover lamb. To quote Yosha, what did he say? It is finished. A friend of mine brought up the Shroud of Turin the other day. She's not a fan, doesn't think it's for real, and frankly, I don't much care whether it is or not. But it is a curiosity, and she has, by the way, very good reasons for doubting it. One of which, at what I think it's 6 feet, he would have towered over the Jews of that age and would have made him more conspicuous than testimonies suggest that he may have been. Valid reasons. And of course, it's a relic of the Roman Catholic Church, and there aren't any of those that have any credibility. But there was one aspect of it that has always intrigued me, which is that the image is a photo negative. That the image is like the body that was inside was hit with radiation, and it vaporized based upon this wavelength of light that left a photo negative impression on the inside with the body vanishing. It's the perfect example of what had to happen after Pesach, where the Passover lamb is consumed. It's finished.
Yeah. I've read a lot about that. Yeah, I have. And and that's the only thing in it that is tough to overcome, is because it's not painted on. It's no known replica other than something that had to be some kind of light so strong that evaporated the body, that left a stain or left that thing on there.
Yeah, that photo negative.
That's a very confusing thing to deal with if you're trying to. But agreed, there's so many things about it that you want to throw away. but it's one of those things that maybe the Catholics need articles of faith. We don't. We have facts, or we don't know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I also have a little issue with. Okay, so it was a crucified body, crucified not in the way the Catholic Church depicts it, not nails through the palms of the hands, but through the wrists and the ankles the correct way. I just got a note when I said no Jews in Egypt. There were plenty of Jews in Egypt. There was likely no Jews who knew were eyewitnesses of Yosha. In fact, I would be willing to bet my soul on it. When these 2nd, 3rd, and 4th century manuscripts were written in Egypt, there wasn't a single Jew in Egypt that was a witness to what had transpired. And the Jews in Alexandria were Greco Jews, in the sense that if you look at the influence of Greece on rabbinic Judaism, it's overwhelming. In the current chapter that I'm writing, when Yahweh is condemning his people for emulating the ways of the Gentiles, I take a slice of time and I tell the story of the infighting between the chief priest and the king of Yehudah during the Roman era. And everybody has a Greek name. Moms, dads, kings, priests, they're all Greek names. And they're all deploying Greeks and Romans and Persians to do their bidding. And there isn't even a nuance of Torah in the midst of it. So
that's his perspective. He's writing.
Yeah. So fact of the matter is, yes, there were Jews in Egypt. There's still Jews in Egypt. In fact, there's a possibility that many of the Copts are actually Jewish, and the number of people that have Jewish DNA is probably 3 or 4 times the number that are acknowledged. I think there's 15 million that are acknowledged. 42%, 7 million, 7 million in the United States, 42% in Israel. And the remaining 16% around the world of those who are acknowledged as being Jews. But beyond that, there are so many more.
Well, didn't Akiba work for Saladin in Egypt? Maimonides. I'm sorry, not Akiba. Maimonides.
Yeah, Maimonides. Yeah. Yes, Maimonides.
So it's a long history of Jews in Egypt. I mean, they wind up there a lot.
Of course. Yeah, that's why that great disgrace of having the Torah translated into to Greek. It was done in Alexandria, and the book of Maccabees was written as kind of the last vestige of somebody taking a stand to prevent total assimilation of Jews into the Greek culture, Greek philosophy. And the fact of the matter is that it essentially occurred. So it's just an interesting study. Now, for those who seek a different path to understanding because they, perceive that, again, that we're somehow devaluing their precious Jesus and overhyping David. I just mentioned before, it's impossible to do either of those things. As the diminished manifestation of Yahowah, the more we see and focus on Yahowah in comparison to Yosha, the better. Yahowah did as he said he would do. Now, Yahowah is the one that elevated Dod to the highest level anyone has ever or will ever achieve. Nothing you and I say or write
make any difference
on his behalf will ever measure up to God calling Dode, Dode, beloved, Sadak, right, vindicated, his Mashiach, anointed Messiah, the Malek, king of Israel, both past and in the future, the Ra'ah, shepherd, who will tend his flock. Though David wrote the Mizmor songs, Yahweh himself inspired and sings, even quotes. Like it or not, our Heavenly Father is Dode's father, and he is very proud of his son. Frankly, this should be as obvious as the noses on our faces. The express reason that the universe was created, life was conceived, the Torah was presented, is because God wanted to enjoy being a father, to share and give all he had to offer to his children. With Dode, Yahweh found the son he was seeking to love, to enlighten, to empower, and enrich. With Yosha, on the other hand, he was set apart to do something excruciatingly painful, with the Creator allowing his creation to torture him. The contrast couldn't be more extreme. What would you rather do? Would you rather focus on your creation torturing you, or the best of your creation loving you?
Obviously the latter. Of course, latter.
Gee, why is this so hard for folks?
Because they're hooked on Jesus. They've been indoctrinated that Jesus is the answer to everything. Can't give him up.
Jesus at the wheel. Jesus is my co-pilot. As I was driving today, my friend said, Jesus is my co-pilot. Is perfect. I said, how can it be perfect? It's like saying, a co-pilot, the one with the less experience, the one that doesn't get to touch anything, just gets to handle the radios. And so Jesus is your co-pilot? I mean, you don't have much confidence in your and Jesus. Then I said, but she says that's the perfect Christianity thing. Man creates God, man controls God. Yeah, I guess so.
Puts him in his place, hangs him on put him on a stick and hang him on the wall.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gross, isn't it?
It was a really interesting insight. So I trust the author of this song, as does God. A Mizmor, a song of Dode, the beloved, to the enduring leader. Yahweh, your will is to respond, and your desire is to provide answers. In the day of troubles, with you choosing to lift up on high the name of the God of Jacob. Mizmor, lyrics to be sung, Psalm 21. All right, first of all, who wrote this?
Dode.
Oh, yeah, it was written by Dode. It wasn't said by Jebus, was it?
No, not by Jebus.
No. Written to whom? The enduring leader. Who do you think that might be?
Yahweh.
Wrote it to Yahweh, his father. And he says, Yahweh. He didn't say Jesus. He said, Yahweh. This is so powerful. Your will is to respond, and your desire is to provide answers. Ana ata. You have decided to reply, lifting up your voice to such an extent that your declaration elicits the proper response. Call imperfect Jusuf. Literally, on an ongoing basis with unfolding consequences as an expression of his will.
Mm-hmm.
When, in the day of troubles, ba yom sarah, during the time of very unfavorable circumstances, the day of dire straits, of vexing calamity, of debilitating distress and adversarial anguish, of being narrowed and confined by adversarial forces. oppressive enemies, and Sa'ar to be hemmed in, besieged, and bound up, cramped, and then hostilely attacked, after being narrowed in a confusing and confining manner.
There's nothing confusing about what he's talking about and what period of time he's talking about it, because there's so many prophecies that call this out. In particular, Daniel, 7 years, and Jacob's trouble, 7 years. My gosh.
Every place that Yahweh speaks of the last, whether it's 3, 3.5, or 7 years,
or the midpoint, or whatever point, or all of it, is always Jacob's troubles. Yes.
And the Jacob's troubles, his Sa'ar, same word, and that's Yisrael's troubles.
Right.
Always, and we learn this so vividly in our translation of Yeshayah 17 and 18. The event that triggers all of this isn't Damascus becoming a twisted heap of ruins. That transpires before. It's not the trigger. The trigger is Yisrael being narrowed at the waist.
Yeah, they're giving up the west.
The U.S. already forced Israel to give up Gaza. Yes, Israel. In fact, Netanyahu said that Israel's going to annex the Jordan Valley. That's 30% of the West Bank. And them is fighting words. I mean, I'm delighted that he said it. I hope that he doesn't.
Yeah.
But the world hates Israel.
Of course they do.
And the world's going to do everything they can to force Israel to capitulate and to give up the West Bank. And when she does, she will be narrowed at the waist and become indefensible. Sa'ar speaks of narrowing, of confining, and creating a great catastrophe, an adversarial condition, debilitating distress as a result of this. And so, if Dode is predicting that Yahweh, your will is to respond and your desire is to provide answers in the day of Sa'ar troubles, then what we know is that when he calls his people, Yisrael and Yehudah, out of the three Babylons, religious, political, and geographic Babylon, God's will is to provide answers for them, is to respond to them, is to give them what they need to know to elicit the proper response. He wants to lift up on high the name of the God of Jacob. And you might say, well, okay, I get that he wants to answer his people's needs, that he wants to respond to them in this time of trouble because he wants them to return to him. But why would he want to lift up his name? The answer is simple. If you don't know Yahweh's name, you don't know him.
Yeah, that's everybody knows their father's name, or you wouldn't know your father. He would be Moab to you.
How in the world are you going to reconcile your relationship with your father if you don't even know his name?
You got to start somewhere. Introduction.
Yeah. How are you going to come to know that Jesus Christ is wrong, that Allah is wrong, that the Lord is wrong, unless you know it's right?
Well, that's the thing you've always said.
I did a radio show.
If they hadn't changed his name, there would be no Allah, there would be no Jesus. If they hadn't called it Hashem and buried his name, then you'd have no problem. If they hadn't changed the letter, and you know exactly what it means.
Right. There would be no Jesus Christ.
That's right.
There would be no Allah if there wasn't a Hashem. That's absolutely true. No one would be calling God Lord if the Jews hadn't done what they had done, the ultimate crime against humanity, and to have the Christians follow suit. The fact of the matter is that God doesn't just want to prove that all religions are wrong. He doesn't just want to expose and condemn the names of all of the false gods. with his people, he wants to introduce his name and make his name known to them. It's essential. Those interests and agenda were in sync with Yahweh's, which is why he is stating, rather than asking, about God's response during the time of Jacob's troubles. Those who do not know Yahweh are predisposed to ask God to reveal his will for their lives. Kirk, in the last 5 years,
Yes.
have you asked God for his will for your life?
No, sir. Not at all.
No.
I know his will for my life.
Not once.
And,
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
What would we ask? Isn't that?
It'd be like,
if your dad wrote
why are
you
we having this
will
conversation
said,
if he would talk to me?
Yeah.
He would say, what?
If your dad wrote you a will and said, son, this is my will for your life.
Mm-hmm.
And then you were to ask your dad, hey, Dad, could you please tell me what your will is for my life? Be so disrespectful.
Yeah.
Yahweh told us his will for our lives. The only people that would ask him his will for their lives are those who do not know him, and therefore he is never going to reveal it to them. Doesn't want them to know it. Dode did. Those who know Yahweh simply affirm it, as Dode is doing. I can say lots of things about what God wants to do and has to do. Not because I have any influence on Yahweh, I have none. But because he told us what he wants to do and what he's going to do. So if he told us what he wants to do and what he's going to do, I can say emphatically, this is what God wants to do and what he's going to do.
Sure.
It's not rocket science here.
No.
Now, by the way, the difference here is astronomical. To ask God for something he has provided countless times is disrespectful and it's disingenuous. To state emphatically that you know his will and concur with his desire is reassuring. Why do you think he loved Dode? Well, maybe this statement is why he loved Dode.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Wouldn't it be wonderful to have a relation with somebody that gets you, that's paid attention to what you had to say, that agrees with what you had to say, that wants to passionately declare and share
not
what you
only
want
agrees, who's so so excited by it.
Right.
Let me be part of it.
It's not presumptuous. It's not arrogant to say God wants this and is going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's respectful. It's simply informed. That's what God wants. The Yom Sarah, the day of troubles, followed by Jacob's name, is clearly a reference to the time of Jacob's troubles, when Israel will be thinned at the waist and once vulnerable, will be attacked by millions of Muslims. That is important because it dates the rest of this prophecy, revealing the timing. It's also interesting that Yahweh's predetermined response is to protect the value and importance of his name, especially at a time when he's called everything other than Yahweh. I mean, how many people around the world use Yahweh's name and pronounce it as Yahweh?
2,000.
Yeah. I'm not sure it's even 1 in a million.
I don't think you're there yet. I don't think we're there yet. No,
I don't think we're there yet. If God did not care what we called him, as is opined by millions of Christian apologists, then he wouldn't be seeking to defend his name. The friend that I was running some errands with today said that some time ago, this black woman was coming from church. She was carrying her Bible, and she was saying, Lordy, Lordy, Jesus. I love you, Jesus. Mumbling to herself, something like that. And she just turned to her in a very compassionate way and says, ma'am, there was no Jesus. A person by that name never existed. This lady went after her and started banging on her with her Bible.
Oh, by the way, stop hitting me with bail, would you? Oh, yeah, that's
Well, born in Bethlehem, Dowd lived upon Zion. We've read what he has written on the signs he and his God have posted along the way. Mizmor 22. From Zion, and by the means of the signs posted along the way. It is his will and desire to reach out by dispatching and extending from his set-apart place someone to assist you who is able to accomplish the task, along with the means to strengthen and sustain you. So from Zion. Did Yosha come from Zion?
No.
No. Did Moshe come from Zion?
No. In Egypt.
But where was Dowd's home?
Originally, or when he moved? He moved when he planted his home, not his father's.
He was born in Bethlehem,
and
he was Zion.
Zion.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. He built the home in Lower Zion and gave Yahweh the foundation for his home in Upper Zion, the ridgeline of Marina.
Good move, David.
Yeah, good move. And then he wanted, in the worst way, to build Yahweh's home first.
Of course he did, yeah.
And Yahweh said, no. We'll build yours first. I've got all the time in the world.
That is so telling.
Yeah, well, I know. Get yours built first. Not to worry about the rest of it. Cool. Trust me, I've got other property. It is his desire to reach out by dispatching and extending from his set-apart place, Moriah, Zion, someone to assist you who will accomplish the task. Well, the person who has been set apart from the place of Zion to help us is Dowd.
It's Dowd, yeah.
Yeah. Along with the means to strengthen and sustain you. His means to strengthen and sustain us is the Mizmor and the Mashal. They expand our energy, renewing us. The inference here is that the helper sent out to assist is Dowd, Yahweh's hand and shepherd. He is inseparable from Zion. His home was built there. And he wrote many of the inscriptions on the signs that are posted along the way. Now, this next statement includes three interesting words, one of which is minchah, which can be rendered correctly as contributions or sacrifices, even as offerings or gifts which have been bestowed and apportions. As such, God could be choosing to remember whether or not we have done as he instructed during the Mikra, especially on Pesach, with regard to the sacrificial lamb. It is though the first four Mikra, that is through the first four Mikra, that the gifts of the covenant are minchah, bestowed and apportioned. However, he could also be mindful of the time we have sacrificed to contribute to what he wants to achieve, the things we've done to bestow the truth for the benefit of others, particularly because minchah refers to the contribution that has been given without compensation. There is even the implication that this gift is of a superior nature. Now, rabbis who charge Jews for everything. I don't know if you know that or not, but
yes, I do.
Rabbis, if you're at a Jewish family and you spilled something on a shelf, you've got to pay a rabbi to come and he's not going to clean it for you, but he's going to pronounce a prayer on it. You know, if you spilled something on your floor, you soiled a pot, you're going to pay the rabbi to do that. You want to get married, you got to pay the rabbi. You want to get divorced, you got to pay the rabbi. You know, you want to have your kids circumcised, you got to pay the rabbi. No matter what you want to do in the Jewish community, you're paying the rabbi for everything. So rabbis charge Jews for everything, enriching themselves at the expense of their people, while presenting themselves fraudulently as a superior gift to their kin, call their prayer time, which is nothing more than collective rote recitals from their Talmud. They call it mincha, perverting the actual meaning of mincha. That said, these same rabbis who have a love-hate relationship with Dode specifically include Mizmor 6 among their recitals. I suspect that is true because Dode wallows in his failings throughout the psalm and reveals his personal vulnerabilities during his darkest hour. The message of Dode's song, however, which was scored to acknowledge that we are frail and that Yah is strong, and that we should trust and rely upon him, not ourselves, is one that the rabbis all seem to have missed and are too willing to subvert. The second thought-provoking term of what we're going to read, and we're now still recording but no longer broadcasting, is eleh, or olah. It also conveys a range of potential meanings, most of which are differentiated based upon the diacritical markings, which are contrivances that were added under false pretenses 2,000 years after these lyrics were scribed. Circa 1100 CE, and under the spell of the Rambam, rabbis had the audacity to call their Masoretic vowel-pointing system shav, from the verb shoah, to deliberately deceive and fraudulently mislead. Therefore, I have consistently degraded their inclinations and have chosen to disregard them and predicate the definitions on the words found in these books upon the Hebrew letters originally written to depict them. Something you've done magnificently.
Very much so, yes.
Kirk. Yeah. Such then is the case with eleh olah, which, based upon Allah, to go up, rise, and ascend, is correctly translated means of ascent or acceptable means to rise. This known, Allah is rendered burnt offering only because smoke rises. As eleh, it is a branch and extension from the main trunk of the tree, which grows out laterally and produces prolific foliage. It is also a secondary growth or stem. While it doesn't fit this context, the lexicon suggests that olah can be rendered injustice, the state of being incorrect or unjust. Now, the third interesting term is dashen, which I'm going to render the one accepted and anointed, but we'll consider it at the conclusion of this prophetic statement. This is
let me share one little thing. He kind of snuck in there on 22. There's a word in there, kadah, or ka'ad, atah. And so I looked it up, and this is from adah, means that's an I and a delete, the odd, and it simply means to see the door. And I thought, they're just little things he slips in where the strength. My original task of doing this was, Terry said, "Is this guy? Let's find out if this guy's really telling the truth." And I said, I'd love to learn how to do this. So that's where it began, way back when. What is it, 11 or 12 years ago? And so it's been a constant thing. But one of the things that I do it for fun. I mean, I just love this stuff. So as I go through it, and I love to participate in this and share whatever 2 bits I can throw in there. But I find these things when you're sitting there with both with the letters and the words, and you just play with it, and all of a sudden you look down there, and all of a sudden it's just like he's telling you, what about that? Well, it confirms what you said on so many levels. I mean, that is like, I can't see how anybody could miss it. I'm being naive because they obviously do, because of whatever agenda they have. But, I mean, if you really were looking, like you've always said, and I've always agreed, go where the words are, go where the words lead, you can't miss what y'all was saying. And that's what I'm not. It's just, to me, it's like, I don't care which way you turn, what letter you look at, he just overwhelms you with, this is what I'm trying to tell you. This is what I'm saying.
It's true. Yeah, it's true. And here the word for means to strengthen and sustain is see the door. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, see the door. So here's 23, and we'll talk about this. We'll probably cover this again next week. His desire is to remember, Sakar, all of your contributions, along with those of your branch, your means of ascent and source of answers, the one accepted and anointed. Pause now and contemplate what this means. So Yahweh's desire is to remember. His will is to recollect, to recall, and to bring to mind. Kol mitzah ata. All of your contributions, all of your sacrifices and offerings, your gifts, and everything you have bestowed on behalf of others. I don't think there's anyone who has ever translated a single letter or word that Yahweh's written, who has ever written a single insight devoted to exposing who Yahweh is, what he's offering and expecting in return, who is actually a member of the covenant, who has done anything for the express purpose of being rewarded by Yah. As a matter of fact, I have repeatedly said, I've only asked Yahweh for I've asked him for two things as a result of what I've done over the years. Only two. And there isn't a reward among either of them. And one of those is that I'd like to be in the back of the room when Yahweh first looks upon and embraces those who, to whatever degree, came to know him initially based on some of the things that I had translated, written, and said. So if I contributed in some small way to somebody finding and engaging in a relationship with Yah, I'd like to be in the back of the room and experience their first moments together. And second, I want to be there to tear Hadrian and Paul and Muhammad to ribbons. I know that God doesn't need my testimony in judging them, but I'd still like the opportunity to serve as a witness against them.
Yeah, well, you're pretty good witness against. Yeah.
Yeah, two small requests. That's it.
Yeah.
You know, and in terms of anything else, I mean, listen, I think when I say this, I'm speaking for everyone who is truly a member of the covenant, without exception, is that most of us, maybe all of us, rather than wanting some acknowledgement or wanting some responsibility, are just thrilled beyond words with the idea of just being one of the guys or gals, of being able with our brothers and sisters to go out and explore the universe, to be able to go out and have fun together and learn together and just sing together and eat together and play together and learn together and just be like a family.
Yeah. I mean,
Dod's got the responsibility. He's got the honors.
Yeah, he's got to
I'm
do that.
delighted for him. I'm glad for him. I want no part of it. And I don't think any of us. In fact, if God were to say, "Hey, Kirk,
you need anything? No, I'm good."
Man, Kirk, you did the job that you did of examining the letters in these words and contributing to my family's knowledge is so spectacular. I want to give you the home right next to Dode, and I want to give you the special honor of being Sir Kirk, captain of the letters. I think that'd be embarrassing.
I think, no, I'm good. Yeah, thank you. We're playing today.
I think you would die 1,000 deaths and be totally embarrassed, and I'd be embarrassed for you.
I would.
And if it happened to me, I'd want to crawl into a hole.
Yeah. No, don't
right?
do that. No.
In fact, I would not want what we have done in a way tarnished by being rewarded for it.
Once you read what he's offering you, and think about it, you accept what he's given you, and think about what those are. What could you possibly ask for that could top what he's already offered you?
Right.
I mean, what could you possibly want? You got to be out of your mind. You can't hold all this with both hands. I mean, give me a break.
Okay. That's our perspective. That's not God's perspective. If what God wrote here is true, then he wants to remember and acknowledge and recall and bring to mind what we have done. Everything which is a gift that we bestowed on behalf of others. Now, I can understand why that's God's perspective. I would do that for my sons. I would do that for everyone who has worked to make a contribution to the family. Yeah, and so I would agree with all of that, and I can understand why Yahweh would want to do this.
Yeah, you can see both.
And I think the more reluctant we are to want it done, the more he would enjoy doing it. And then, along with those of your branch, your means of ascent, and the source of answers, well, that means he wants to acknowledge Dode along with us.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not cool with that.
Yeah.
The one who is accepted and anointed, that's, again, Dode. And he wants us to contemplate and consider what this means. Kirk, my friend, and those who are still listening, and particularly to those who participate in the archives, it is time for me to go, and we have a wind that is howling, we have a tide that is rising, we have lines that are tightening, and if I don't accept my mundane responsibility as the captain of the good ark, Kara, then I'm told that one of our lines may pull the cleats out of the boat, and that bad things could transpire thereafter.
Say no more. Say goodbye.
So I'm going to go.
Goodbye,
I'm
shalom,
going to do my thing. I hope that the voice quality was good with the headset. I promise not to push the button and disconnect myself like an idiot. I'll do something idiotic the next time, but it won't be that same mistake.
Well, we look forward to that. Okay.
I apologize for being late to keep the boat from sinking, and apologize for leaving now, but duty calls.
That's all for good
duty calls.
Okay.
All right. Good night. Shabbat shalom.
Good night. Good night, y'all. Shabbat shalom.